Hi, this is Eric Leuschner from Real Property Management in Blacksburg, Virginia, where you can own the home and not the hassle. This is the next video in our series on landlord investor education. I hope you enjoy this as much as you have enjoyed the other videos. A couple of caveats to begin with. I'm not an attorney, so nothing I say should be construed as legal advice. I am not a financial advisor. Nothing I say should be construed as financial advice either. I am a licensed real estate agent in the Commonwealth of Virginia and a realtor. So, four common mistakes that do-it-yourself landlords make. A lot of people have a rental property, they want to manage it themselves or thinking about managing it themselves. So we're going to cover those, and then we're going to talk about some ways that you can avoid them. Kind of the do-it-yourself landlord mindset, some of the things that you may be thinking if you're thinking about doing it yourself is, I'm going to save some money because I don't have to pay a management fee to a property manager. So if I pay that property manager, I'm going to make less money than if I manage it myself. Turning your property over to a property manager involves a great deal of trust. You trusting the property manager to take care of what could very well be your most valuable asset. Even if it's not your most valuable asset, it's certainly a very valuable asset, and you're giving up control of that to another person. And that can be scary. And you have to trust that property manager. And there's an interview process that you will go through with the property manager, and hopefully both of you will be comfortable. Renting a property seems like a very straightforward process. I put a for rent sign in the yard, I put an ad on the internet, I sign a lease, and then I start collecting a rent check every month. It's a little bit more complex than that. Actually, it's a lot more complex than that. The first mistake is poor tenant screening. And a lot of times this is just because a private landlord does not have access to the resources that a property manager will have access to. So property managers can generally will have the ability to run credit reports directly from the credit bureaus, conduct criminal background checks, look for bankruptcies, look for evictions, and oftentimes an individual will not have access to that. The subscriptions can be cost prohibitive if you're only renting one property, and there's vetting processes that you have to go through in order to be given access to those. Fair housing is a huge issue, and picking that tenant because I like this person or I have a bad feeling about that person, that can get you in a lot of trouble very quickly, both ways. You may think somebody's a great tenant and you put them in there and they're not, and then you have problems. You will solve 90% of any problems you have with your rental property by putting the right tenant in place. Legal requirements, and again, this is not necessarily saying that people are ignoring them on purpose. They may just not know that it's a requirement to do that. If your lease is not well written, and again, not legal advice, but in contract law, if you end up in court, the person that did not write the contract is going to be favored in the interpretation. So if you write a lease and there's some confusion in the lease and you end up in court with the tenant, the judge is going to favor the tenant's interpretation of the lease rather than yours. Mishandling security deposits is very simple to do and very easy to do, and a lot of people will do this. The money is not the landlord's money. It is the tenant's money, and it's supposed to be held in trust by the landlord. You cannot use that money for anything except repairing damages to your property. Evictions can be very complicated, and there's a lot of people that will do what they call a self-help eviction. And again, the courts frown upon this and will come down very hard on somebody for doing a self-help eviction. And that would be, for example, turning off the utilities, changing the locks, driving by the house every day, knocking on the door, saying, "Where's my rent? Where's my rent?" Very easy to do something like that if you're not aware of the laws, and the judges tend to come down very hard on landlords that do that type of thing. Reactive maintenance versus proactive maintenance. Your home is a depreciable asset. If you have a house in a field or on a lot and you don't touch it for 20 years, it's going to deteriorate, and things are going to break and it's going to lose a lot of value. We need to stay on top of maintenance. The other thing is if a tenant asks you to fix something and you consider it a minor issue, maybe you lived in the house for 15 years with that particular issue going on and it didn't bother you. So you don't think, why should I have to fix that? That light switch has always worked that way and I'm not going to fix it. You're not living there. The tenant is living there and things in the house need to work as they were designed to work. And if you are not responsive to tenants' requests for maintenance, they are going to get the mindset of, well, the owner doesn't care about this house, so why should I care about this house? And they're not going to take as good of care of your property. You're also going to lead to them not renewing their lease. If they think you're being non-responsive to their requests and not meeting their needs, they just won't renew the lease. And every time you have to put a new tenant in, that costs you money. So making a 20 or 50 or $100 repair that you don't think is necessary may save you that tenant not renewing their lease. Property managers are going to have access to vendors at a preferred rate. A property manager may buy 200 water heaters a year and have them installed by the plumber. So that plumber is going to take care of the property manager as a customer because they're bringing them a lot of business. If you put things off, you can end up paying a lot more for the repair. So again, with the water heater, if you look at the water heater and you say, okay, this thing is about to go out, let's go ahead and replace it. And we're going to do it on our time. We're going to do it during the business hours, and we're going to have it scheduled. That's going to cost you a whole lot less money than calling the plumber out at 2 o'clock in the morning on Christmas Eve and paying 2, 3, 4 times the cost for the installation, as well as then having to clean up the mess that the burst water heater made. So planning ahead really saves you money in the long term. People will often misplace rent. And so knowing the market is something that a property manager should know as part of their business because they're dealing with things every single day. Some people will want to say, let's try it at a higher price and see if anybody will rent it. And then the house will sit empty for 30, 60, 90 days because the rent's too high. And you end up renting it for the lower price anyways, and you just lost 60 or 90 days worth of rent. And so if you had rented it at the lower price to begin with, you're making the same or potentially more money. We have had clients talk to us about what they think their house should rent for, and they've been $400, $500, $600 under the market price. So they're very pleased when we tell them that, hey, no, you can get a whole lot more money for your house than that. We kind of touched on these things, right? So if you make these mistakes, you're going to potentially lose income. You can lose income by pricing too high. You can lose income because the tenant doesn't renew their lease. A lot of legal risk in enforcing the lease, potential fair housing violations, lower property values because you're not keeping up on preventive maintenance. This can be particularly important if you're an out of town owner. And there's a lot of stress involved with this. So you can avoid these mistakes by screening your tenants properly. And some property management companies will offer a service to lease the house and then turn it back over to you for management. And so then you're getting the benefit of their access to the screening systems and their expertise in interpreting those systems. And then you can manage the property. And so that's what we just kind of talked about. Property managers do this professionally. They generally are licensed real estate agents in the Commonwealth of Virginia. A property management company is a real estate firm, and the property managers have to be licensed real estate agents. I think that's pretty common in most other states, but you could check on that. So hopefully you've enjoyed this and gotten some good information from it. Please click like and subscribe. You can see all our other videos in our library on YouTube.